Twilight has been on my mind since I made a silly comparison to it in my last video, and I have something to say. Twilight could have been great, even though it wasn't. And I think one element of the story that was criminally underdeveloped was the globalist mafia that led vampire society, the volturi. For those unaware, the volturi is an ancient and powerful coven that is responsible, somehow, for enforcing vampire law worldwide. Occasionally, that involves tossing vampire babies into fires, but mostly it involves making Bella Swan's life more difficult. And in that sense, the reason they exist in terms of narrative,
dramaturgically,
is basically to be the final boss. And I think that's a damn waste. Because I genuinely feel like once the Volturi were in the picture, Bella and Edward were relegated to the least interesting aspect of Twilight. Like, the vampire population can't possibly be that large, but even so, there's one government overseeing all of them? How does that work? How did they get in that position? Like, it's clear that the Volturi have assembled a team of vampires with, frankly, overpowered special abilities, and that's how they remain in power. But how did they get there in the first place? I want to watch Succession, but with members of the Volturi. Although actually the immortality aspect would kind of take away from the driving force of that show. But even so, vampires can be killed. So how does Arrow remain in power for as long as he has? Were the vampire laws ratified at some point? And if so, who voted? Do vampires have to pay the Volturi taxes? And why was Carlisle ever a high-ranking member of the Volturi if he doesn't have special abilities? Was Carlisle Cullen a concubine? And honestly, I'm sure some of these questions have been answered in supplemental materials or by Stephenie Meyer in interviews, but that's not what I want, because the narrative we were given did not make those details important or necessary, and I wish it had. And I'm not an advocate for taking things that authors say about their work as canon, because death of the author. So in general, the Volturi deserved better, and I do not care about Bella Swan.